Okay, great.
So, good evening, everyone. We'd like to thank all of you for joining us. We have Brianna Schultz and Micah with us from InclusiveU at Syracuse University. So they have a presentation that they're going to be sharing with you. We will be moderating any live questions that come in. Take it away, Brianna and Micah.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is Brianna Schultz. I am the Internship and Employment Coordinator for InclusiveU and the Tayshoff Center. And Micah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Micah. I graduated from InclusiveU in 2015. I teach 2 classes at Syracuse. I'm a teaching assistant, and I moved from Michigan to Syracuse in 2012, and I've been in Syracuse for 9 years.
Awesome. And we'll get into Micah's story in a little bit, but we wanted to just talk about InclusiveU and the Tayshoff Center, who oversees InclusiveU. InclusiveU is a 4-year program run through Syracuse University to give students with intellectual and developmental disabilities the opportunity to go to college. And we thought the best way to show you about InclusiveU would be to share our video. So we're going to start with the video, and then we'll continue our presentation.
Every student deserves the opportunity to have the college experience to help them achieve their dreams. InclusiveU is an opportunity for students with intellectual disability to have a full college experience. So students earn a meaningful certificate from Syracuse University. Students declare a major. They participate in fully inclusive coursework. They can participate in college internships in real business opportunities. Students can participate in clubs and organizations. Students can live in residence halls. Our students have lots of peer opportunities and participate in attending athletic events.
My favorite things about SU was everything was my favorite. Being able to be with my friends, doing all these opportunities that I didn't think I was gonna do.
I love SU because it's fun, especially my favorite mascot, Otto.
Tyler Dyer. Good for you, 2020. Go Cuse. Let's go our house.
I think the first time I met Harry was when he came in for orientation. He was a student who just getting from one room to another could easily get lost or confused. Harry became this student over 4 years who lived independently in the dorms. He became this student who could navigate campus on his own. When he walks across campus, he knows everyone. He is just a star.
This little kid, we love basketball a lot.
Harry started working with the men's basketball team as one of the student managers. Harry has always had this love of sports and athletics, and it fit right in with his career goals and also with his major. It was something that was really just a dream come true for him.
Basketball manager. And coming out suddenly, my boys are awesome.
And then his senior year, he participated in our senior internships. We know that for many of our students, getting a job after graduation is a really important goal for them. And it's an important goal for most college students. The internship year is something that we think is a really important part of our InclusiveU programming, that we help support students in choosing something that is tied to their career interests and is related to their major. All of these pieces really tie together for a student like Harry because he took courses in his major area of study. And so his major was exercise science. He worked with the men's basketball team throughout his college career. And he also did his internships in both the Barnes Center and the Manley Fieldhouse. So those internships really tied into what his career goals are. Often our students go to classes with a peer mentor that can help them with their schoolwork, who can help them organize their materials, help them participate in class, help them participate in group work, help them with their homework. Students can bring a mentor, or students can work with us to hire an SU student to be a peer mentor. We set up from the very beginning a peer-to-peer program. It's really expanded the social opportunities for students and really given them that extra first step in how to get involved. We're really proud of our program and how much it's grown in the last few years. 3 years ago, we had our first student who lived in the residence hall, and that was Megan.
When I started as a freshman at InclusiveU, I was very shy and I didn't really know anybody. I was the first person to live in the dorms.
We work with the InclusiveU students to figure out what kinds of supports they might need. Residential mentors are SU students who live in the residence halls and get matched up with our students based on their needs.
It was just really hard for me because I wasn't used to living away from home, but then I got really used to it after a while, and I stayed in the dorm, and I met a lot of nice people and everything who let me be who I am. Harry lived downstairs too, so we all hung out together all the time.
To see her graduating from Syracuse University and about to move into her own apartment, I'm just really proud. Cleo was our first Remembrance Scholar from InclusiveU. The Remembrance Scholarship is the highest honor at Syracuse University. And to have a Remembrance Scholar as an InclusiveU student is something that we actually didn't know could ever happen. I'm really proud to be part of Syracuse University because of their inclusive stance.
It makes me feel good because they know I've been supporting this college community here at Syracuse University because they know I've been attending every event. My student organization campus involvement I was part of was Relay for Life. I was a recruitment chair. My sophomore year, I joined Sport Management Club, a student association I'm also part of. I liked it so I could show my leadership.
No dream is too big. Just because somebody told you that you couldn't do these things, or just because you were nervous or scared, doesn't mean that you can't go out and do these big things in your life. Because these three prove that it's possible, and you can do it too. This is a college campus where students with disabilities are really part of the full college experience.
I'll say I changed because I'm a grown-up person.
You can do anything that you want to do.
I love Syracuse. This is my life.
So we thought that was a really great overview of InclusiveU and what we do. So just a little bit more about InclusiveU. As part of InclusiveU, our students fully participate in academic coursework. They earn a university certificate in a major that they pick and work towards a career goal of their choice. They receive some enhanced instruction through seminars that we offer, and these seminars are on a range of different things. Anything from self-representation to personal health. We have a residential roundtable for students who live on campus to connect and talk through anything that they're going through within the dorms or apartments off campus. We offer supports to our students through student support assistants, residential mentors, campus mentors, to make sure our students are set up for success. And then we have our peer-to-peer program that touches on social events. They arrange group get-togethers. They have interest groups. Students get together to go to games through peer-to-peer. So it's a really nice opportunity for our students to connect with other students on campus as well as their peers in InclusiveU. Our students participate in clubs and student activities. We have a wide variety of internships that students mostly focus on in their senior year, but can start anywhere from freshman year on. And then we also have an inclusive housing option in our dorms as well. So just a quick day in the life of our students. Some might meet with a peer partner for breakfast or for coffee. They can do this either at the Starbucks on campus or anywhere of their choice. Then they might work out at the gym with a peer partner. After that, they might meet a mentor and attend a class or classes, depending on their schedule. After that, some students go and study in the library or do homework in our common area of our building. Students might have lunch at varsity with friends, then attend a seminar. Our students use the library or computer labs around campus to continue to do their work, research, access anything, especially right now virtually. They might participate in a club or organization later on in the day, then have dinner with friends. And a lot of students attend our Orange After Dark activities that happen at 10 o'clock or later to keep students involved in the community and other opportunities to have fun around campus. So Micah, I'm going to turn it over to you. Micah has a few slides about how he ended up at Syracuse and with InclusiveU.
Okay. This is my first slide. I attended 2 big conferences in 2011. And I was here for a whole week. A whole week, and I called my mom and said, "Oh, I wanted to move to Syracuse," and I had to start a circle, and I was visiting Syracuse just to speak, and then I thought of moving here because they really got inclusion. They've been doing inclusion since 1975, and they train our students who are in teaching very well about inclusion, and I just thought it would be a great place for me to have a job and build a good friends group and stuff.
Awesome. So is this the conference you spoke at, Micah?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I spoke at a conference, and are there other things on this slide?
Yep.
Okay. And then I spoke at the conference, and then I connected with faculty and the dean, and I called my mom and said I wanted to move to Syracuse, and my parents live 540 miles away or something like that, but it was a big move to Syracuse because in Syracuse I don't have any family. I have a big circle, but my parents live in Michigan, and my sister lives in Boston, but they are big help.
Sorry, Micah.
Oh no, it's fine. And then when I moved to Syracuse, I was working, and then I decided to take classes, and I got my certificate in disability studies. I took 5 or 4 classes in disability studies, and then some public health classes, and then I graduated with a disability certificate. And now I work for Syracuse University. I help do outreach for the Tayshaw Center. I help teach 2 classes, and I do a lot of things for Syracuse. And I teach 2 classes, one on disability studies, and one on teacher training class. It's how to help teachers know how to work with people with disabilities. And then here's some of the work that I have done with having disability. I served on the task board. I give keynote speeches. I was appointed by President Obama. I have never met him, but I'm hoping to meet him one time, maybe. But I did get appointed from him. And here's some of the independent living. I can fly on my own. And then I volunteer at Parenthood. I have a trainer, and I have and I'm very social on Facebook. If anyone wants to friend me, I'm a good people on Facebook, and I do lots of great things in Syracuse. And in self-direction, I hire my staff, and they help me, and that's how I hire I find people in newspapers, and that's how I find people to work with me. And my circle of support, I started my circle meetings in 3rd grade, and throughout my whole life, I have had a circle, and it's a great group of people that helps me and support me, and they can help me with how things are going for work or job or in my community, and I go to them, and when I was practicing dating, they shared some great tips and thoughts to help me when I was going out on some practice dates. And here's 2 books and a book and a movie. There's one book of my our family's journey, and a film about me before I moved to Syracuse. And feel free to send me emails. Right now, because of the pandemic, I am doing things on Zoom, but I'm happy to do more presentations, or feel free to send me emails if you want. And thank you.
So, thanks, Micah. And I know a lot of people really love hearing Micah's story, because Micah really took his experience at InclusiveU and has grown so much. So we're really happy and thankful to have Micah around even after he graduated. So I just wanted to touch on the different paths to InclusiveU. So some students pay for InclusiveU with self-direction. They use their Medicaid budgets and pay for classes using that budget. We have some students whose parents work at InclusiveU or work at SU and are able to pay for classes through the dependent benefit. We have a private pay option, and then we have some students coming in through a local school district or through a local agency and accessing classes that way. And then applying to InclusiveU, we have our application on our website. We have a completely digital application where you can log into our system and walk through different questions, personal information that we collect to apply to InclusiveU. We do not require that students graduate high school. We are looking for students who want to go to college and want to access higher education. So after a student turns in their application, then we have an interview process, and our admissions committee reviews applications and will send out a decision. Our applications are usually due in January, and with decisions made by the end of March. So you can connect with us through Twitter. Our handles there, Facebook and Instagram. We're active on all 3. So if you want to see what we're up to on a daily basis, those are really great platforms to connect with us. And then I just wanted to leave the last few minutes for any questions that may have come through.
Thank you so much, Brianna and Micah. That was such a great presentation. We do have some questions.
Yes.
One is, does the program offer just certificate programs, or are there also bachelor degrees that are offered through InclusiveU?
So most of our students are getting certificates. We do have 2 or 3 students who are getting bachelor's degrees or working towards a bachelor's degree. So that option is available to students.
And what types of certificates? Is there just one certificate that everyone goes out with, or are there multiple?
That is a great question. We have certificates. If there is a bachelor's for it, there's usually a certificate. So we have students with certificates in exercise science. We have students with certificates in disability studies, earth science, radio and music. It's a wide variety of certificates.
Okay. So just to jump in, I'm sorry to interrupt, but some of the parents have been asking if this is going to be a recorded session this evening. I know it is not specific to your presentation, but even though we are going to archive these videos on our district website, so we can send out the information afterwards. We'll send up a follow-up email for all of you that are interested in viewing these at a later date or just for future reference. Thank you.
Micah, thank you so much for telling us about your current job as a TA. What is one of your favorite tasks that you do at your job?
Like as a TA or as an outreach.
As a TA.
Oh, as a TA, I think one of the things is just teaching students to have students learn from someone that has a disability, because most times they see it in the books, but they don't usually meet someone. But I had a chance to show them and meet someone and just explain that we might not be able to do everything, but we can do a lot of stuff, and just show them that when they're teachers, they'll be able to help their kids and stuff.
That's awesome. You spoke a little bit about self-direction. I did see your documentary, Intelligent Lives. Can you tell everyone what is your role in self-direction? How do you hire your own employees? Does someone help you do that?
I started you want to know how I started?
Yeah.
Michael, what specifically do you do in the self-direction process to lead all of that?
I hire my staff. I have a broker that helps me with hiring my staff and meeting with them. And one of my colleagues and coworkers at the university knew of a broker, and then that's how I found my broker. But she helps me with my circle meetings. She helps me with hiring staff, and I can give them raises. I can decide how much money to pay them, and I find great. I find good staff to help me.
Thank you.
Micah, I love the term you used earlier on, your circle of support. I think that is such a wonderfully fabulous phrase, that to know that you do have an entire circle of people around you that are really familiar with you and understand your needs, and that you're comfortable to communicate with when there are things that you may need support with. I think that's a really fabulous idea. Fabulous. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, and from that, I don't want people to think that everything was easy in my circle in life. It is challenging, want people to know that some stuff is like very easy, but some things are hard to like challenge and yeah, it's not like
Yeah, but you have a really great group of people around you
yeah
to kind
yeah
of help you figure out those challenges, right, Micah?
yeah.
All right. So I don't see at this point in time any other questions that have come in live in real time. So if you want to take a moment to just kind of maybe pull it all together, circle back, wrap up anything that you did not get the opportunity to share.
Sure. I think what I would like to touch on is our internships and our housing options. Typically, some students do commute from the Syracuse area, while other students are coming from places as far away as Washington, California. So those students do live in the residence hall. They work really closely with our housing coordinator to match them with residential mentors, to place them in dorms. And it's really an inclusive housing option where students are living all across campus. They're not centralized in one dorm. So they really have the opportunity to integrate with their peers. And it's been a really great experience for a lot of our students. In our internships, we've worked really hard to give students a really real life work option on campus where they're participating in jobs that are part of departments and are real work experiences to really help bolster their certificate and match them with the career and the option of their dreams. So I think those are two things that we didn't touch on the PowerPoint, but are also really important to know in our program. So we're really proud of the work that we're doing at SU, and we're really thankful to have Micah with us and outreaching to everybody as well. So if anybody has any questions, they're more than welcome to reach out to me, and I'm sure Micah, and we can go from there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We genuinely appreciate your time and all of the information that you've shared with us. It really is truly valuable information that I'm sure many of our parents are going to be able to use.
Wonderful.
So, thank you so very much. We appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Micah, stay well.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Nice to see you again, Micah. Bye.
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 Hi, Jessica. I'm going to ask you to hold tight for one moment, okay? Jessica, can you hear me? Good evening, Valerie. How are you?
Hello, Grace. This is Jessica from Tri-County Care. How are you?
Good evening, Jessica. How are you?
I'm doing great. So glad to be here. I'm happy that the link was working.
Thank you. We are live actually on our YouTube channel right now. So just double checking if Valerie can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect, perfect. Welcome, ladies. So I believe we are just a few minutes early. So if you want to just maybe go ahead and introduce yourselves before we get started with the formal presentation, that's fine. Take it away, ladies.
I'll go first. My name is Jessica Williamson. I am an intake and outreach specialist at Tri-County Care. Tri-County Care is one of the 3 major care coordination organizations, and I'm here to talk to families about how to get their child enrolled for care management services and how we help the families through the OPWDD, Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, progress, so we can help them get through that process.
Sorry, I was on mute. This is Valerie Hurley-Del-Signor with Tri-County Care. I am the Director of Benefit and Entitlements here with Tri-County Care. We assist individuals, especially at the beginning of the process. When you begin the intake process, if you do not have Medicaid, intake will notify one of the benefit and entitlement specialists, and we will work with the families to get the Medicaid in place so that you can receive your services. Thank you. Yeah.
Ladies, quick question. I'm not sure if you're aware that your cameras are on mute. If you're able to unmute them, great. If not, no problems. But I just wanted you to be aware. Thank you. Thank you so much, Valerie.
You're welcome. Okay. Yeah. And Jessica, did you want to start with the intake process and how that works, and then how the referrals get over to Medicaid? Is Jessica still with us, Grace?
Yes, hi, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you guys hear? I'm sorry.
Valerie, maybe you can pick up from where Jessica might have left off.
Sure. Okay.
I'm back. I'm so sorry.
Okay, Jessica, take it away.
Yes. So good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's on the call. Thank you so much for being here and having me being able to talk with you today. It's a pleasure. My name is Jessica Williamson. Again, I am an intake and outreach specialist. That means I help families through the enrollment process. I am one person that is part of a really large team of intake specialists who help families. We hold their hands through this very long process of getting enrollment for care management. And we just want to make sure everyone gets through the OPWDD process of getting their eligibility, getting their Medicaid waiver services so that they can have the services that they need. So I'm just going to give some information about what is needed. So why does someone need a care manager? So if somebody has a developmental disability, the state, which is OPWDD, Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, does supply waiver services. Those waiver services are paid for through Medicaid, okay, Medicaid waiver. So in order for you to get these services, we do have to get you through a lengthy process, okay? So the first thing you will need to submit to your intake specialist when you are coming to Tri-County Care is you must do a signed application. Make sure that you have your application along with the psychological, the psychosocial, your annual physical, an IEP, and copies of your Medicaid card and copies of the Social Security card. Parents may ask, well, what if I don't have Medicaid? Not to worry. We do have Medicaid specialists here at Tri-County Care, and my colleague Valerie is going to be here to talk about that as well, and a little bit later on. But right now, I just want to help you to understand how to get through the OPWDD process. Okay, so all you would need to do is simply call Tri-County Care, which is 844-504-8400, and you'll get linked up to an intake specialist. And parents, it does not matter where you are in the process of getting OPWDD eligibility. For example, if you haven't completed your front door session, that's okay, because Tri-County Care is here to help you make sure that you get linked up to the virtual, or you can also call in to complete your front door session at OPWDD. That is just a first step that you must complete, and that's just general information that you're going to be getting directly from OPWDD. And then what you're going to do is you're going to give us proof that you completed your front door session, and your intake specialist will continue with your enrollment. Number one, we will mail out and also email you an application so that you can fill that in and send it back to us as soon as you can. Along with that, your intake specialist is going to hold your hand throughout the whole process. So if you have questions, if you have any concerns, always make sure that you have your intake specialist phone number. You know, a best place to put the intake specialist phone number is on the refrigerator. Everyone goes to the refrigerator, so you won't be able to lose that number. That number will be right there every time you need it. What you want to do is just make sure that you have documentation. The documents that you're going to need is a psychological, a psychosocial, an IEP, copies of the Medicaid card, copies of the birth card, copies of the Social Security card. Not to worry, if parents are not having or do not have an updated psychological or psychosocial, do not worry. We're going to help you get appointments. Although the appointments may take a little long for you to get set up, not to worry. A lot of things have slowed down. A lot of wait lists are happening right now because of COVID. A lot of the appointments have been pushed back, and a lot of the clinics are, backed up with their appointment. But you don't have to worry about doing it alone. That's the great thing about coming to Tri-County Care. That's the great thing about having an expert, someone there to help you through this process. So parents may ask, well, how long does it take for me to get a care manager? It really depends on the documentation that you already have. For example, if you have an annual physical, but it's 2 years old, you will have to get another one. So that means you have to go to your doctor and get an appointment and get a new physical completed, and then have that report sent to your intake specialist. It's all about making sure that you have the proper documents. And your intake specialist is very knowledgeable and will help you to navigate through this process. So those are all the documents that you will need. Also, if anyone is able to see the chat box, I have put all of my information into the chat box. Everything that I'm talking about is also in that chat box, along with the documents that is needed for you to get through the process, okay? So the first thing you want to do, parents, is, again, complete your virtual front door session. You can find that information on the OPWDD website. But if you don't have that information to get to the website, just give us a call. We'll help you with navigating and getting the phone number and also the link so that you can do your front door session. After that, we will help you to complete your OPWDD eligibility. We're going to need those documents that I mentioned before. After that, we're going to make sure that you have Medicaid waiver. Again, I'm going to mention that Valerie is on the call and she will be able to give more information about Medicaid waiver, okay? And then once we complete those major points of the enrollment process, that is when we can assign the care manager. So at this point, I would like to take any questions, or Valerie, would you like to continue?
Jessica, this is Grace, so I'm just going to jump in for one quick moment, as I do have a question for you. How long can an applicant expect to wait from the very beginning of the process to services actually being put in place if all of the paperwork and all of your documentation is in place?
At this point, OPWDD is giving us a 30-day to 45-day turnaround. So if everyone has all of their documents available to us and they do not need to get signed up for Medicaid, that's when the enrollment process can be much faster for them. If they have all of their documents and everything in place when we submit to the state, it usually takes between 30 to 45 days for them to give us back the determination and give us any documents that we need to complete the enrollment.
Thank you so much. So for those that cannot see the chat box, what I'm going to do is I will provide all of your contact information and a follow-up email.
Awesome.
To all of our registrants. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
So Valerie, thank you. You can take it over with Medicaid.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Grace.
You're very welcome.
Hi. Again, my name is Valerie. I'm the Director of Benefit and Entitlements here at Tri-County Care. So the process is, so when you first start with intake, they will determine when is the most appropriate time in order to make a referral over to my team to start the process. What's most important about this right here is we are not allowed to submit a Medicaid application to the county until intake is at a certain process and they have obtained what we call the parental deeming letter from OPWDD. Some parents do come in to the intake process with that letter already in place. If that's the case, then we would, a referral would come over to my team immediately. One of my team members would give the parents a call and they would just do a Medicaid screening with you. There's several questions that are in a Medicaid application that we will be asking you, and we will let you know everything up front. We do need to know household situation. So not only do we need the child's birth certificate and social security number, but we also need everyone in the household, parents, siblings, grandparents. Most of the time I won't ask like for grandparents' social security numbers, but sometimes the county will, and we will have to, provide that with that information. So please keep in mind, it does not really matter what the parent's income is, even though we have to ask and we have to document with the county by providing them with 4 weeks of wages for parents' income. The county is obligated to run a Medicaid budget to determine that that child is not Medicaid eligible using mom and dad's income before they're able to go to the next budget, which is the Medicaid waiver budget. In order to get that budget, again, the child can't be eligible using mom and dad's income. They run their budget, they make that determination. The next thing is that child would have to be deemed disabled. So there's 4 medical forms that we will provide to the parents ahead of time when we complete the Medicaid application. 2 medical forms.
Yeah, I'm literally juggling two virtual meetings, one for church and one for work. So the one for work is going to end at 7. So
yes,
church, you can call me unless you want me to call you, but you can call me.
Hey, Jessica, you want to mute yourself?
Unless you fall asleep. All right. Yeah, I'm busy.
Jessica. Hi, sorry about that, everyone.
2 separate meetings at the same time. I'm juggling my church meeting and also my work meeting, which ends at 7. So I won't be free until later on. I guess you can call me around like 9:30 if you don't fall asleep. Okay.
Yes.
And drive safe.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that, Jessica.
Hey, Grant. I'm literally juggling 2 different meetings at the same time.
Okay. So I'm gonna go forward. So start over the benefit and entitlement. Once I get the referral from intake, they will call mom or dad. They will do the Medicaid screening. At this point, we're going to be asking about household income, verification of where you live. We got to make sure that we apply in the correct county. So again, the medical forms. There's 2 medical forms that mom and dad have to complete. There's a medical form that your child's physician has to complete, and one their teacher has to complete if they're attending school. Along with those 4 medical documents, we will be asking for a copy of the child's birth certificate and social security card. If you've already given that to the intake worker, we will know that ahead of time, and we of course will not, ask for you to supply it again. We will get it from the intake team. We'll also be asking for a copy of a utility bill, current, in order to verify your residency. Parents' wages last 4 weeks, along with any resources that your child has. If your child has a bank account, a life insurance policy, a trust fund, we have to document all income for the child, all income and all assets for the child. I'd like to make a special note. If you receive child support for this child, that is considered the child's income when it comes to Medicaid budgeting. Don't necessarily agree with that rule, but it is a rule. So it's just something to keep in mind, that would be used for your child's budget, and that would not be waived when it comes to Medicaid budgeting. We gather all this information, and then these forms, once you submit them back to your benefit entitlement specialist, we prep it, we get it in the exact order that local county wants. Another thing to keep in mind, every county has a little bit different rules here and there, but we've become very familiar with how each county wants their packets, exactly what paperwork they want, and we will ensure when we submit that packet to the county that they have everything that they need. We very seldom have the county come back to us asking for anything else, but if they do, we will certainly work quickly in order to get that to them if it's appropriate. Some counties will ask for documentation that they do not need, and that is something that we are well versed in, and we will review that with the county, because we want to make sure they're only getting documentation that they truly need to make an accurate decision. So these forms will be submitted along with the Medicaid applications. They'll also include all the medicals that you've already given to your intake worker, your psychological, the IEP, and a current physical, and any other medicals that you provided to them. We want to make sure when Medicaid gets the application and they send the referral off to the New York State Disability Review team, that team also has everything that they need in order to expedite this process. We currently are getting our disability reviews back in well under 30 days. It used to take 90 to 120 days, but currently, for some reason, they're moving rather quickly, and I think ours go through quickly because we do ensure that they have all the documentation they could possibly need when they get their packet, and that they do not have to request anything additional. I also want to keep in mind, I believe most of the parents on this call are in the Long Island area, so that would be Suffolk and Nassau County, and maybe possibly Westchester County. There is a little bit different process for the New York City area, not much different, but it is a little bit different, but I won't get too much into that. But as a parent, if you are in the New York City area, please feel free to always, give Tri-County Care a call, and we can go over, the process with you for whatever area you live in. Again, once you've obtained all of those documents, you'll return it to your benefit entitlement specialist, in the self-addressed envelope that we provided with you. Once we submit the Medicaid application to the county, the process can take up to 30 to 90 days. When we submit to the county, they have to, again, run their budgets, make sure the child's not Medicaid eligible before they're able to send the referral over to the disability review team to get the disability review process started. We will monitor all cases to ensure a favorable decision. However, there are times when an individual may not qualify by either not meeting the OPWDD requirements or the Medicaid income asset guidelines, or by not being deemed disabled. Every once in a while, we might get a surprise when we submit our application to the county. Something might show up. Maybe there was a bank account that the parents weren't quite aware of that could have put that child over the asset level that they're allowed for Medicaid. That asset level for a child, they are allowed to have up to $15,950 in a savings account or in any type of asset. There are also certain assets that are exempt for children. If your child has a savings account, but it is titled as a UTMA account, that is an exempt asset for Medicaid. We have to document it, but it will be exempt and it will not count towards that Medicaid level of $15,950 that they can have. Couple additional notes. Our benefit and entitlement specialists are very well versed in all the Medicaid income assets guidelines. You can usually advise these families prior to completing the Medicaid applications. There are often steps that we can help you complete prior to applying for Medicaid. So if your child does have too much money in a bank account, we can assist with advising the steps possibly to set up a supplemental needs trust. You will need an attorney for that. And we can also look at to see if that money is something that could possibly be into a supplemental needs trust. You can also set up ABLE accounts. You can turn those savings accounts into the UTM, which is Uniform Tax for Minor Act accounts. And again, those are exempt. We can also assist with setting up Medicaid pool trust to assist with any type of excess income or assets that the child might have. But again, we would work with the families prior to applying with Medicaid to make sure everything is protected, if it can be, before we would submit that Medicaid application to the county. I look forward to working with all of you. I hope you decide. Tri-County Care, I think we're a wonderful organization. Our benefit and entitlement specialists consist of 5 of us. I have 2 that worked out in the New York City borough area. I have 1 for the Orange, Rockland, Suffolk area, and another individual for Nassau, Orange, Westchester, and I'm up in the capital region, but I am available to everybody on the team. So I look forward to meeting all of you. Thank you so much. Grace?
Thank you so much, ladies. We really appreciate your time. So we do have a couple of questions. I know ETP is a process all in and of itself, but some of the parents were wondering, does Tri-County support with that process? And do you actually have participants working within the ETP program? And what does that sort of look like on your end?
Grace, what do you mean by ETP?
The employment training program, Jessica, I think you.
That's what, yes, okay.
So ETP is a service that parents can get for their children when they have received their care manager. The care manager would be the one to help them to get that waiver service. ETP can be in the form of supported employment services, which is SIMP. You have also it kind of escapes me at this very moment, but there are other workforce waiver services that are available. You just have to get with your care manager, and then the care manager will assess what the needs are and make sure they get linked up with those waiver services in their area. So the ETP is something that parents can get for their children. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Some are asking for a little bit of a clarification between Medicaid and SSI. There's a little bit of confusion about, what is covered under what and what the process is between the two.
Okay. So SSI is an income that your child can qualify for. For an individual that's under the age of 18, parents' income and assets is determined for an SSI determination. There is no process in order to get parental income and assets exempt in order to qualify for SSI. So again, SSI is an income. Medicaid is a health insurance. So that's the biggest difference between them. But if your child does qualify for SSI based on the household income and assets, they are automatically guaranteed to get Medicaid health insurance. So you would avoid the process of having to apply through us, again, if your child is SSI qualified. Please keep in mind, it's a pretty simple process to create to go online to myssa.gov and start a Social Security application. One thing I'd like to stress, I'm not sure if parents are aware, there's a huge difference between SSI and SSD. Both of them are incomes, but SSI is for individuals that have never worked and paid into the system. And it's pretty much a set amount of what they're going to qualify for based on their parents' income. They're never going to qualify for more than like $900 a month in SSI income. Social Security disability income can be based off of what the parents have paid into the system and also what the individual has paid into the system. And that's where their monthly benefit amount is determined. So again, that's the difference. Have you paid into the system? Have you not paid into the system? And whether you get SSI or SSD. I hope that answers your question.
That was a very in-depth answer. So yes, thank you so much. So
Okay.
just for one bit of a clarification, does the SSI come first prior to Medicaid? Is that what we're saying?
No, I always suggest if you have not started the SSI process, then start the Medicaid process first. In order to get deemed disabled, through OPWDD is the least stringent, the least strict in order to get deemed disabled. The next, Medicaid, is kind of in the middle. So it's easier to get deemed disabled for Medicaid than it is for SSI. And they all have different paperwork that they want. It's totally different departments that you're going to be working with. So even though you're deemed disabled through OPWDD, Medicaid is going to still do their process, and SSI, Social Security, is still going to do their process. Problem is, the reason I say apply for Medicaid first, because if you apply for the SSI and they do not deem you disabled, Medicaid cannot do their process of deeming you disabled for 2 years after you've been denied by SSI. So that could put you 2 years behind the 8 ball of getting Medicaid because you were denied for SSI.
Wow, informative. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Another question is, and there's been a little bit of confusion, I know, with some of our parents. Once some of them are asking, are you able to receive services through an agency like Tri-County prior to being deemed eligible by OPWDD?
Jessica, I'll let you take that.
So like you're in the process, you're along the way, you have your application sent in, and you have not quite yet reached that letter back of being eligible to apply. Is there programming or services that an agency can provide prior to getting that final yes, you are eligible letter?
That is a great question. The only thing I know about that is if someone already has eligibility. I'm not sure about what services can be given before they reach eligibility, but I know if the person has eligibility, but they have not been linked up with the care manager at that time, there are some services that they can try to get. But it won't be like, for example, we can reach out to YAI and see what services they can give to a person while they're waiting for their care manager to be assigned to them, because they still have to complete the rest of the enrollment process. So I'm sorry that I don't have a specific answer for that particular question, but what I could do is reach out to my supervisors and find out if there is some other type of services for someone who has not completed the eligibility process yet.
Thank you. So I'm wondering, Mal, if it would be helpful to understand the Family Services and Supports Grant. I'm wondering if services can be received through that prior to having the determined eligibility.
You could reach out to the boroughs, county, or and find out if there's a Family Support Services committee, and then maybe they might have some information regarding that. Specifically, I don't know at this very moment, but I'll be happy to get that back to you.
Thank you so much. And another question we have is, a lot of parents are looking for ABA services, in-home ABA services as supports. Does OPWDD at all cover ABA supports? If yes, how would parents go about securing them? Is there specific criteria that needs to be met? Is that something maybe between self-direction that can be paid for, or is it a straight up service that can be paid for directly through OPWDD?
So there was some questions that was given to me regarding ABA. For example, if the question was, does Medicaid cover ABA? It kind of depends on the type of Medicaid a person has I don't think that straight Medicaid pays for ABA, but an ABA agency should be asked this question. That's more specific to them. Also, someone may want to ask, can you use self-direction for ABA and social groups? ABA is paid for by insurance, not by OPWDD itself. Self-direction includes community classes. A broker would be a best person to answer that self-direction question. But when it comes to ABA, for sure, ABA is paid for by insurance, not by OPWDD. I hope that answers the question.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So now that actually opens up the door for another question as far as brokers. Does Tri-County support in securing, or would you be able to sort of funnel parents in a direction towards certain brokers, or is that like a conflict of interest? How does that work?
So during our enrollment process, we do ask questions to the family. We ask them if they are interested in self-direction. If they are interested in self-direction, that is something that will be handled once they have received their care manager. Once the care manager comes on board, that is a question that the care manager will ask again, and then link them up with the self-direction brokers. So that's definitely something that can happen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, ladies. Let me just double check, and I'll see if there's any last minute questions. Type. I don't see any at this point in time. So what I'm going to do, is it possible for individuals to still receive SSI payments if they are employed?
So I always refer back to the Social Security office on that. Their budgets are very in-depth, and there's so much involved in those. If you're receiving SSI and you do find employment, your SSI is going to be adjusted based on how much income you are making. And at some point, hopefully, which is always the goal, that you are making enough income that you can no longer, you can disenroll from the SSI and SSD program. That's always the goal whenever you're receiving any type of Social Security benefit, is that you become self-sufficient and no longer need those benefits. So again, yes, you can, if you're receiving SSI and you get a job, you will continue to receive SSI, but that benefit will go down and eventually be depleted where you won't receive it anymore. Very, very important. If you are receiving Social Security benefits, SSI benefits, Medicaid benefits, any changes in your income are reported to both offices within 10 days of those changes, because you don't want to do anything that's going to create an overpayment or where you weren't, if you got a huge increase in income and you were no longer qualified for Medicaid, you want to let them know immediately so you don't get yourself in any type of situation you don't want to be in.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, ladies. I don't see at this point in time any other questions for you. So what I'm going to say is this: I will share both of your information and contact numbers with the participants here tonight via an email and a follow-up. And again, if any of our registrants are participating in this workshop and did not participate in our first workshop, I just want to make you all aware that we are actually going to archive these presentations on our district website to go back to just for some future reference. If anybody has any questions, I will also send that email information in an email after the event this evening so that you will know how to gain access to, again, reviewing this.
And you're always welcome to give Tri-County Care a call with any questions you have.
Valerie,
thank you so much.
We thank you and appreciate your time, and we realize that evening is always difficult to make yourselves available. So thank you so much for all of your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much,
Grace.
And I think for all of those that are out there, we're going to have a few minutes in between our next presentation. So please bear with us, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Grace. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. No. Good evening, Terry. How are you?
Good. How are you?
We are well. Thank you so much for joining us. We're thrilled to have you here and to have your informative presentation on the ETP program and the processes involved. So I know that there's so much information to share, so I'm going to let you get right to it. Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. I'm glad to be here. Again, my name is Terry Hughes. I'm the program director at South Oaks Hospital. Part of the services that we provide is working with school districts as well as working with OPWDD and ETP. So what I'm going to do is kind of give you an overview of what ETP is while they're in school, and then what ETP looks like when they leave high school. ETP stands for Employment Training Program. As many of you have probably already seen, that there's a lot of acronyms in the adult world. It's alphabet soup. So you're going to hear a lot of acronyms thrown at you. ETP, Employment Training Program. SEMP is Supported Employment Program. ETP is actually a carve-out of the SEMP program. And I'll go through the differences as I go through this. So ETP was actually established in 1980, and it's developed for to provide employment opportunities for individuals with developmental disabilities. So there are certain requirements that an individual will have to be able to be eligible for ETP services. Now, there's two types of candidates. One is considered a trainee, and the other is considered an intern. While the students are in school, the last 2 years of high school, before they exit, they're considered trainees. So first you put the application in. In order to be eligible for ETP, the individual must be in the last 2 years of high school, must have OPWDD eligibility, needs to have completed the HCBS waiver to continue with ETP after high school, has a strong desire to work. And that's a real important key. This is really for somebody that's getting ready to go to work. So they have a desire to work. They must meet other considerations such as employability, physical needs, and social needs. The misnomer about ETP is that once they leave high school, they can have those are my dogs. They can have a job coach with them forever. That is not true. The idea is that we want these individuals to be as independent at work as possible. Yes, they will have intensive coaching once they first get out of high school, but the goal is really to pull back on the job coaching. We want them to develop natural supports within their job, and that will make it a good fit. Employers don't want job coaches forever. It's not conducive to. It's not conducive. It's not in the best interest of the individual nor the employer. So it's somebody that has a strong desire to work, but you need some help getting there. They have community experiences built into their schedule at high school, so they go out into the community. ETP will not count hours that are done within the school building because it's not considered real work. They need to be out in the community, a maximum of 12 hours per week they can get paid for. The exciting part of this is if they're accepted, they now become employees of OPWDD. This is really weird not seeing everybody. Just have to say. They become employees of OPWDD. So they will get a paycheck just like an employee of OPWDD for up to 12 hours per week. The school district must provide transportation to and from the site, and it's part of their school programming. They need to have qualifications that they look for are strong work ethic, personal hygiene, communication skills, computer skills, time management skills, safety skills, policy and procedure skills, problem solving skills. These are skills that you need to be employed. We understand that our students are going to have limitations, and that's what the whole point of ETP is to work on those limitations so that they can be employable. School district also has their own eligibility requirements. They have to have the family and guardian support them, because if you're not encouraging your child to go to work and be productive and, you know, wear a uniform if necessary, if you're not supporting that, then it makes it difficult for the school to be able to follow through with it. They like to see them in as much work experience as possible before they leave in the 2 years. Again, because this is going to build their tolerance, it's going to build their endurance, and it's going to get them ready for the real world. Students must also be able to listen and follow directions carefully. So these are the soft skills that we'd be working on with them while they're still in high school. Be able to work at a task until completion, demonstrate an ability to function at minimal level of independence, possess basic problem-solving skills, being willing to ask for help, possess the stamina required for the job, can stand as required for the position of the work period, and has the strength to lift or carry as needed in the position. So I'm going over what would make them a good candidate while they're in high school. So while they're in high school, within the last 2 years, an application is submitted. Many of you might have already done that. Your child might already be an ETP in the high school, sorry. You might already be doing that. 6 months before they leave, or actually the year that they're getting ready to leave is better because things take time. You should be working with your Medicaid coordinator, care coordinator, to make sure that you have the waiver put in, that you've gone through the front door, that if you're doing self-direction, there needs to be an amendment to your budget because you have to include supported employment. These are all the things that should be worked on before they leave high school. The more on top of that you are, the smoother the transition. The beauty of ETP is that it can be a very smooth transition if everything is in place. With self-direction, it may take a little bit longer because the budget has to be determined. And even if it's not a finalized budget, it at least has to have supported employment in the budget and with enough to cover ETP. You have the option of going with an agency where the agency can provide the support for your young adult. I recommend that often because it's very overwhelming when you leave high school and now you're in the adult service area. Hiring your own staff can be challenging. The other downside to hiring your own staff, particularly for ETP, is you got to make sure that they're trained. If they call out, you can't tell an employer that they're not coming. Your young adult is not going to go to work because they don't have a job coach. You know, that's not going to be acceptable. So there's some things to consider. If you decide to go with an agency, then there's paperwork that would be needed to fill out as well. You would need to contact that agency and make sure they're able to support your young adult. I also encourage that you do more of a dual program. ETP is not an all-day, everyday program. It's just not. It's not designed that way. So in order to have your young adult continue to work on their social skills, their soft skills, the skills that are going to make them successful for work, I strongly encourage a dual program where they do either a program without walls, they do a day hab, or they do a pre-voc program. Most of those programs are very flexible, and you can do 3-day programs where you can do 2 days with ETP, or do 5 days with the day program, and then maybe once a week don't go to the day program. Most of them are supportive of that because, again, the last thing we want is for our students to leave high school, get comfortable on the couch, and never get up again. We don't want that. We want to keep them going. And again, that's the beauty of ETP, because when they leave, they can continue with a temporary internship. It doesn't have to stop because they've graduated high school. Once they've left high school, whether you choose an agency or you purchase your own staff, they can continue in a site that they're actually doing well with. So, for example, if they're doing tropical smoothie and they're doing really well and the employer really likes them, they can continue during the summer while we go through the processes of ETP. ETP is a process. It is not, okay, my child graduated, get him a job. It doesn't work like that. And for good reason. We want to make sure that when your student or your young adult leaves high school, that they're going to be successful. We don't want to just get them any job, because any job isn't necessarily going to be a good match. So we want to take our time. We want to get to know this individual. The school knows this individual because they've had that individual for how many years. When they leave high school, they tend to be a little bit different because now they don't have the structure of school all day. So we see different sides of them. They also don't have the support of all the teachers and the aides that were in the school. So again, we see a different side. There are some occasions where an individual might be enrolled in the ETP program while they're in high school, and we have a meeting at the end of the year with your ETP supervisor and your staff and your parents and the student, and we say, you know what? They need a little bit more work. They're not ready. That is not a bad thing. And I want to stress that. We don't want to put anybody in a situation where they're not going to be successful. Our goal is to help these young adults be successful, productive members of society. And I would think that many parents feel the same way. I think many students feel that way. They want to be just like everybody else. So we're not going to say, yes, let's go get them a job if we don't think they're ready. We may start the process and do what we call discovery. Discovery is very encompassing. It's we speak with the family. We speak with the mom, dad, brother, sister, grandparents, anybody that's in that circle of support. We'll talk to, if they're going to a day program, we'll talk to the day program staff. We'll observe them at day program. If they have hobbies or the sports they're into, we'll go visit them at their sports. We're going to talk to anybody that knows that individual because you guys know them better than we do. Then we're also going to interview that the candidate, the potential employee. We're going to talk to them and we're going to get a sense of what they like. We're going to do interest inventories with you. Now, I recognize a lot of the schools do that already, but again, it's different being in the adult world. It may come up with the same thing. It may come up with something different. Once we've done that, we're going to do what we call observations, where we're going to go and see them in different sites. We might, if they're not involved in any activities, we might have you take them to the mall and see how they do in a social situation. You know, what the point of the observation is really to see what kind of supports is this individual going to need to be successful. Then we do what we call situational assessments. So we're going to try different places. They're really interested in working in retail. Well, we might try a couple of different types of retail. We might try food service. We might try something working with animals. We might try an office. But I'm going to warn you, office jobs are not that easy to come by because there's carving out pieces in an office are very challenging because there's more expectation for employees to do more. So it's a lot more multitasking, and quite often our youth have difficulty with that. So we haven't been as successful with office jobs. Not to say that we're not, because we have gotten some people, but it's not usually as successful because of the labor market. And that's a big part of this, is we have an expertise in the labor market. We know where the jobs are, how the job market is moving, because we have to stay on top of that. The other piece to that is COVID changed a lot of things. Jobs are not the same as they were a year ago. We all know that. So it's really getting to see them in different work environments and seeing how they do. We have to write, I want to say it's like 50 something pages of a report. In that report, we're going to collect all the data, all the information. And this usually takes a good 3 or 4 months. Okay. Don't be impatient with this. This is the most important part of the whole process. It's not your typical, okay, there's a job, get them a job. We want to make sure that the job that we find for that individual is a good fit because we want them to be successful. Once they finish the discovery process, we're going to indicate whether or not we feel that we should move forward or if they need a little bit more time to work on some skills. Again, it's not a bad thing if we say that they need to work on some social skills or not social skills, any skill. If there's a particular skill that they need to improve on before they move forward, we may make that recommendation. I had a case not too long ago. This young man had a lot of behavior issues. He was having difficulty at his day program, and even in the job site, he was having a lot of difficulty. And we made the recommendation not to move forward, not because we disliked this young man. We actually liked him a lot. But he was not going to be as successful in a job if he didn't work on these behaviors. We're not saying he can never come back to ETP. We're just saying not now. He needs to work on the pre-voc programs without wall. They have one of those programs, including community hab, ComHab worker, getting him out and socializing him because that was where he had the most difficulty. His interactions with individuals was poor at best. So, he needed to work on that. So for argument's sake, we decide that, you know what, this person's really ready. Yeah, they got a few things they got to work on, but I think we can make it work. We're going to recommend a specific area to look for based on our situational assessments, based on our observations, based on the interviews that we've had with everybody, based on all the data that we've collected. And then we're going to make recommendations. Once we submit this report to our supervisor, the OPW or the ETP supervisor, she then sends it up to Albany. Albany reviews it and decides whether or not we've made a strong enough case that this individual is ready for the next step. Once Albany approves it, we move on to the next phase. The next phase is development. Development is also very important because we're going to take our time in talking to employers. Again, we don't want to see there's a job, we put them in the job. We want to make sure there's a good match. That if this individual has difficulty with a lot of stimulation or a lot of noise, we're not putting him in a busy store. If they have difficulty with interacting with customers, maybe we're going to look for something more low-key, maybe doing some stock to start. And again, one of the things I'm going to stress, we all started off with our first job, our first real paying job. So just because they start off in a certain place doesn't mean that's where they're going to be forever. I've had a lot of success stories where people have moved up. I've had other success stories where they just got so comfortable and it was perfect for them. So that's okay too. Every individual owns their path. So once we talk to different employers and we say, you know what, this might be a really good fit for this individual. There's really good natural supports. The boss is really nice, very open, and is willing to try this individual out. Again, the advantage with ETP is OPWDD will pay that individual's salary while they're learning the job, while they're training. So it's not free help because they are getting paid, but to the employer, it's less of an expense for them. They don't have to pay for training, which is an incentive. So they get to train this individual how they want them to work. This spans for usually, well, there'll be like a check-in at like 3 months. How are they doing? What do we need to work on? Do you see yourself hiring them? If so, what skills do we need to continue to work on? And they'll tell us, and we'll work on those skills. And then in another 3 months, we'll talk to them again. You know what? He's close. He just needs to work on this one small thing, and then I think I can put him on payroll. Then we're going to work on that one small thing with the goal of him being able to transfer to the individual, to the employer's payroll, and no longer be an employee of OPWDD. To get to that process will take time, but we also don't want it to go on for a long period of time, beyond the 6 months to a year. And the reason for that is employers get very comfortable. They get very comfortable with having good employees that they don't have to pay for. We don't want that to happen, because that's not good for our candidates. It's not good for the employer in the long run, because eventually that person's going to stop coming, because they're not going to continue to pay their salary if they're not going to be hired. We've had situations where individuals did this and were successfully transferred right to their payroll. We've also had situations where employers said, you know what, I don't need a trial. Let me hire them, and let's see how it goes. We've had direct hires. It really depends on the individual. The job coach will work very closely with the individual and the family. But one thing I need to remind all parents, once they leave school and they're over 18, they become adults. And I know that's really hard, because you know them better than anybody, but a lot of the services are directed towards the individual, not mom and dad anymore. So you may see your child doing something where your child has expressed interest in something else. We have to listen to your child because they're considered an adult, and it's person-centered. So we focus on what their needs and what their wants are. Not to say we don't take into consideration your concerns or your thoughts, because we do. But it's really all about that individual. That is what the school is working so hard to do now. They're working to getting your young adult as independent as possible. And we want them to be independent. It's scary. And I got to be honest, in all my years of doing this, and I've been doing it for a very long time, I think transition is harder for the parents than it is for the kids. I see the young adults be very resilient, but I think the parents have a harder time because it's scary. It's totally understandable. It is scary. The adult world is very different than the education world. Education world is entitlement. Adult world is eligibility. There's more hoops to jump. That is why ETP is such a great transition, because you don't have to stop. You can keep going. With that temporary internship, and then right into discovery, right into development, and right into placement. That's what they call intensive services. Intensive means that we can provide a maximum amount of support. We get, ETP allows for 250 hours per year of job coaching support while somebody's in intensive. Now, this individual has had this job, say they've had it for 6 months with no incident. They're doing great. We're just checking in on them. And then we may move to what we call extended. And extended doesn't mean we go away. I have somebody that's been on our roster for about, probably about 8 years now. We still check on him once a month. If there's a change in manager, if there's a change in task, they call us and we come in and we help the individual. So we don't go away, but we're not intensive forever. And again, that's the beauty of ETP, is it's fostering that independence. Once they've reached that extended, then we're checking in on them maybe once or twice a month. depending on the individual. It is very person-centered. Just because somebody got this doesn't mean that somebody else is going to get that. It's really based on the individual and what their needs are. We've had individuals that have done, we thought were a good match, and it didn't work. So we went back into development and we started looking for other positions. The difference between this and going to Access VR is a couple of things. Access VR has supported employment, and their supported employment program is based more on milestones. So once we hit this milestone, then we move to this milestone, then we move to this milestone. And when we hit this final milestone, then it's turned over to extend it through OPWDD or OMH, whichever one you're connected with. Once it's been transferred, then you're going to extend it. The difference between supported employment and ETP is the length of time that we get to spend with the individual. With supported employment, we don't spend as much time doing the discovery. This is because that individual functions at a higher level. They don't need as much support. They do need support, but not for as long and not as intensive. ETP is really for that individual that really just needs more support for a little bit longer period of time. If you went the route of Access VR and supported employment, there may be steps in between. There's no internship when you leave. So you would be referred to Access VR. You would meet with your access counselor, and the individual, the students, would be the one talking to the access counselor and telling them what they want and what their dreams are and what their goals are. Don't be offended. Access may not have you come in the room initially. And again, that is because in the eyes of the law, over 18, they are considered adults. So just keep that in mind. But ETP has a lot of benefits, and it can be a much smoother transition. When they're in the adult system, they're considered interns. When they're in the education system, they're considered trainees. That's the major difference. If you your individual gets out and they don't want anything to do with ETP, but they want to just go to a day program 5 days a week, that's fine. 2 years, 3 years, a year from now, they decide they want ETP, you can apply as an adult. You don't have to be in the school program to go to ETP. And that's important to know. So if your plan doesn't include that right now, it doesn't mean down the road you can't do it. You would just fill out the application and you would submit it, and you would have to go through the process similar to what you did while you were in school, which is getting the interview, getting fingerprinted, and getting approved by Albany. So it's very similar. Wow, I didn't think I could talk that long. Are there any questions? I think I got like 2 minutes left.
Thank you so much. That was so informative. We do have some questions.
Sure.
Let's see. Can parents contact South Oaks Hospital directly for ETP post-secondary?
They can contact me. You can put it in the chat for me. They can contact me directly, 631-553-7905, or they can email me at thughes@northwell.edu.
Putting that in the chat now. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So you shared that an individual that has been receiving job coaching for about 8 years, is there a maximum amount of time that a young adult can participate in ETP post-secondary?
Okay, that's a great question. What I didn't mention is when they go to extend it, they're not considered part of ETP anymore. They're considered part of supported employment. And that is ongoing. That doesn't go away. Extend it, like I said, is we just have to do a mandatory check-in once a month.
Okay. If a student in high school is participating in ETP, when should they start the discovery process?
Okay, technically we if they're self-directed, they probably can't start until after their budget has been submitted and all the paperwork is put in. So usually around June. If they're not self-directed, then once everything is in place, they've gone through the front door, they have the waiver in, and we get approval from the supervisor at ETP, then we can start in March the discovery.
Okay.
After school.
Okay. And let me find one more. Okay, you shared that sometimes young adults have to work on more pre-voc skills before they might be ready for ETP. Is there any age limit on a person that could start participating in ETP?
No, we've had individuals that have been in nursing homes and at 53 years old decided they wanted to work and applied to ETP. So no, there's no age limit on that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
No problem. Have a wonderful night.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Good evening, Lambert. Good evening, Marie. How are you?
Hey there, doing well. Hi, Grace.
Thank you so much for being here this evening. We're so appreciative of your time. Thank you so much. So I'd like to introduce Lambert Liu and Marie Flanagan, transition specialists from OPWDD. They're here to present an overview of OPWDD. I know that their presentation is always chock full of information, so I'm going to let them take it over right now. I just wanted to mention at the end, our district is actually going to archive all of the presentations from this evening on our website. So I will send out all of the information in an email tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grace. I can be heard? I'm heard, right?
You can be heard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just checking. So as Grace mentioned, my name is Marie Flanagan, and I'm one of 2 local school transition coordinators at OPWDD's Long Island Regional Office. My colleague, Lambert Liu, is super knowledgeable, and he'll be available to answer questions following tonight's presentation. Some families may be familiar with us because prior to COVID, Lambert and I would present a 2-hour information session at high schools across Long Island. And these sessions are now offered virtually, and you can register for one on our website. I'm going to actually try and share. Okay, I'm going to try and share. There it is. Okay, so our website is a great resource for information on all things OPWDD. The information sessions are offered weekly, and there's also one each month offered in Spanish. And anyone can attend a front door information session. OPWDD eligibility is not a requirement for attending. So tonight I'm going to be presenting a general overview of OPWDD and the front door process. And due to time restrictions, some information just had to be left out. So I encourage everyone to register for a full presentation. Now, I want to inform a little bit about what Lambert and I do as local school transition coordinators. We work hand in hand with school transition coordinators and special ed staff at schools across Long Island to assist in applications for eligibility, to guide in the process of obtaining supports and services, and to help schools to prepare their students for the transition from high school to adult services that are offered through OPWDD. Some of the supports and services OPWDD provides, not going to go into great depth. I'll touch on them a little bit later, but we offer day programs, either site-based or programs without walls. We offer community rehabilitation, vocational services, some of which were discussed this evening. We offer respite and housing from subsidies to family care to individualized residential alternatives, such as group homes that are whether supported or supervised. We offer funding for environmental modifications. We offer funding for adaptive devices, and as well as other supports and services. So I'm going to provide a link to our host to share with families for what we call, it's our Access to Services Guides, which provides a really comprehensive view of the services we provide at OPWDD. You can also find the guide on our website, or you can email Lambert or I, and we can send you a copy of the guide. So additionally, in our role as local school transition coordinators, Lambert and I regularly provide status updates upon requests from schools, informing them where a particular student is in the process of obtaining eligibility and securing services through OPWDD. It is recommended students begin planning for these services with their school districts at least 2 to 3 years before they graduate. We want students and their families to start talking about OPWDD adult services early, say about age 13, 14, or 15, at their CSE meetings, talking about what the student might want to do when they leave school, whether it be work, a day program, housing assistance, or other services. At age 13, 14, or is really when the planning for life after school should begin. Now I want to provide an overview of OPWDD, meaning what we do, why we do it, and how a student can become eligible for supports and services, and how the services are funded, and where people can go, where a family can go to get help. So to begin, OPWDD is the acronym for the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. We are the New York State agency that authorizes services for people in New York State who have intellectual or developmental disabilities. The supports and services we offer are provided by hundreds of nonprofit agencies located across New York State that OPWDD certifies and regulates, such as YAI, ACLD, Human First, EPIC, FREE, to name just a few. Now, OPWDD has a few day habilitation programs and residences that they operate directly. However, the vast majority of our services are provided by these nonprofit agencies who are under the OPWDD umbrella. Now, when I say intellectual and developmental disabilities, OPWDD serves individuals with a qualifying condition, which includes an intellectual disability, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, neurological impairments, autism, some forms of muscular dystrophy, Tourette syndrome, familial dysautonomia, and Prader-Willi syndrome. And there's also another category wherein the symptoms appear to be a qualifying condition, even if the individual doesn't yet have an official diagnosis. To obtain OPWDD eligibility, having a qualifying condition is the first of 4 criteria that must be met. Second, there must be evidence that the condition occurred anytime from birth until age 22. For students, this is easy. We know they're under the age of 22. To clarify this, though, OPWDD serves individuals across the lifespan. They can apply at any time. So when I say birth to age 22, I only mean that the condition occurred prior to age 22. Third criteria is that the condition is expected to be permanent. The qualifying conditions I mentioned are expected to be lifelong, such as intellectual disabilities, autism, neurological impairments, cerebral palsy, and other qualifying conditions. They're expected to permanently impact the individual. The services OPWDD offers are habilitative in nature, but not curative. So the supports and services surround the individual to help them live more safely and independently. The fourth criteria is that the condition significantly affects the person's ability to function in society, which we refer to as their adaptive functioning. And this is their day-to-day functioning. So again, the 4 criteria: a qualifying condition, which occurred prior to age 22, that is expected to be permanent and significantly impacts the person's day-to-day functioning. Now I want to talk a little bit about OPWDD's front door process. OPWDD's front door is a person-centered approach to help individuals and their families learn about and access services and support from OPWDD. The front door is not a single step. It's best to think of the front door as a process, from making initial contact with OPWDD through to the authorization of a first waiver service. And that was addressed a little bit in the previous presentations, but I'll touch on waiver services very briefly later in the presentation. The first step is typically contacting OPWDD. But if your school has submitted an application to us on a student's behalf, contacting us at this point is not actually a requirement. For those who reach out to OPWDD as a first step, you can call the front door number, which I have shown on the screen, and this can also be found on our website. The front door includes obtaining an eligibility determination and completing a telephone assessment with an assigned OPWDD front door facilitator who can explain and assist individuals and families with securing services. To obtain any service through OPWDD, you must obtain eligibility. Your school is a great place to begin the eligibility process as they provide most, if not all, of the documentation required to submit an application to OPWDD for an eligibility determination. The documents are submitted to our eligibility unit and helps us to see whether a person meets those 4 criteria I mentioned earlier, that there's a qualifying condition, presented prior to age 22, expected to be lifelong, and the condition significantly impacts the person's day-to-day functioning. So the documents that we need include, first, a full psychological evaluation with a full-scale IQ and adaptive functioning. Now, the psychological evaluation shows us the qualifying diagnosis, the age of occurrence, and the IQ scores will inform if there's an intellectual disability. The adaptive functioning, whether it's in the psychological evaluation or done as a separate document, will show the impact of the disability on the person's day-to-day functioning. Now, the psychological report needs to be current, and generally this means no more than 3 years old. Second, we'll need a current social developmental history or psychosocial evaluation. And this will inform of pregnancy, birth, the individual's developmental milestones, their interpersonal skills, family relationships, and more. The social history needs to be current within 1 year. Next, we'll need a current general physical exam, just a yearly physical exam. And like the social history, this needs to be current within 1 year. Fourth, we'll need the student's current IEP. And fifth, depending upon the qualifying condition, we may need a specialty report, of which there are 2 types. A medical specialty report for qualifying conditions that are medical in nature, such as cerebral palsy or epilepsy, or if the primary qualifying condition is autism, we may need what we informally call an autism specialty report. And when I say may need, it's because sometimes students have multiple qualifying conditions. So if the student has an intellectual disability and autism, we may not require an autism specialty report because they can qualify with the intellectual disability based on that full-scale IQ in their psychological evaluation. So families can submit these documentations for eligibility on their own, or through a care coordination organization, or through a non-Medicaid service coordinator who can help gather and submit documentation to our eligibility unit. I'll discuss these agencies in just a moment. However, schools regularly gather and submit eligibility documentation on behalf of students. They know the student, and again, the school is providing most, if not all, the required documentation, so sometimes it just makes sense. Once the documentation is submitted, a determination typically takes about 90 days, but this can take longer, particularly if additional documentation is requested. So once reviewed, you may receive a letter indicating that the individual is eligible, or a letter requesting additional documentation, which is fairly common, or a letter indicating that the person's not eligible. An eligible letter is just that, the person's been determined OPWDD eligible. The next letter, a request for additional documentation, can be a clerical issue. Say, for example, we didn't get all the pages of a document, or it could be a discrepancy that needs clarification, or we may need a specialty report. It really varies. A request for additional documentation does reset that 90-day clock, though, so it's best to have all the required documentation in order when submitting. Now, the determination letter is, if the determination letter is received that the individual is not eligible, this means based on the documents submitted, the individual has not met those 4 criteria I mentioned earlier. Not eligible determinations go through a second and a third step review process. And families can also request a case conference to discuss the determination. And they also have the option of requesting a fair hearing. Or sometimes families will later apply with new documentation, say at the triennial their new triennial evaluations, and then the individual may then be determined eligible. So I'm just saying a not eligible determination is not necessarily a final determination. So once an individual is determined eligible, the family then attends an information session if they haven't already. Remember, eligibility is not a requirement to attend an information session. And to recap, after submitting documents, the individual has been determined eligible, the family or the individual has attended a front door information session, and next, if you've not already been connected with a front door facilitator at OPWDD, now's going to be the time. The family will participate in a phone assessment with an assigned front door facilitator at OPWDD. The facilitator is going to work with the student and their family to figure out what kind of supports and services may be a good fit. What are the student's strengths, their challenges? What are their current supports, including family and community supports? And the facilitator will guide families to next steps. The phone assessment is a very person-centered approach, and we want the student to be involved as much as possible. It's their goals, and we want them to be at the center of the planning process whenever possible. There's also another assessment called the CAS, or the Coordinated Assessment System, and it's for newly eligible students who are 18 years of older. And I'm not going to be discussing them now, but if anyone has questions, they can be addressed in the Q&A after the presentation. So you spoke with a front door facilitator at OPWDD. Next, families of older students are typically connected to care coordination organizations, or CCOs for short. The families choose from the 3 care coordination organizations that serve Long Island. CCOs they're like a special category of a service agency that falls under the OPWDD umbrella that can help individuals and families with the eligibility process. They can help to secure Medicaid and then connect them to the supports and services they need. There are 3 care coordination organizations that serve Long Island, which some may be familiar with, and one presented this evening, and they are Tri-County Care, Advanced Care Alliance, and Care Design New York. And there's no need to remember them at this time, as once eligible, you will have OPWDD as well as your school's guidance along the way. Care coordination organizations are familiar with the many not-for-profit agencies that are the providers of the supports and services. For students who are seeking those adult services in preparation for life after high school, such as day programs, supported employment, housing, and other services, working with a CCO is actually required. Many, although not all services, are provided through OPWDD's Home and Community-Based Services Waiver, or the HCBS waiver for short, and it's funded through Medicaid. To better understand what the waiver is, and I know it was mentioned in previous presentations, you can think of the waiver as waiving the restrictions of typical health insurance. So for example, when we think of health insurance, we think of insurance to help cover costs for things such as physical exams or lab work or various therapies. The HCBS waiver allows for services to be covered such as employment training, residential opportunities, day programs, self-directed supports and services, respite, community rehabilitation, and more. Again, think of the waiver as waiving the restrictions of typical health insurance. If there are concerns about a student under the age of 18 not qualifying for Medicaid due to the parent's income, if the student is appropriate for OPWDD and waiver services, OPWDD can help by issuing a letter to the Department of Social Services that requests DSS, please disregard the parent's income. It's called a parental deeming letter or a letter of intent. Care coordination organizations, as well as non-Medicaid service coordinators, can help guide you through the process of applying for Medicaid when needed. As I mentioned, not all supports and services offered through OPWDD requires Medicaid and the HCBS waiver. OPWDD also offers a special category of supports and services called Family Support Services, or FSS for short. The family support services are funded 100% by a New York State grant. The services offered can be particularly helpful for younger students. These non-Medicaid service providers can help families to apply for OPWDD. They can help to secure Medicaid. And some of the supports and services they offer are or include weekend or after-school programs, many respite services for families, summer camp, recreational opportunities, services in times of crises. We offer up to $1,000 reimbursement voucher for services not in the in the list. So the family support services can be a really great option, particularly for students who receive most of their services through the district, or perhaps for families who may not want to apply for Medicaid for a child who's under the age of 18. And I want to add, once determined eligible, family support services can be authorized very quickly, typically just a few days after that telephone assessment with your front door facilitator. So let's say we're working with an older student who's preparing to graduate high school and seeking waiver services. You've connected with a CCO, completed their enrollment process. They've helped the student to secure Medicaid. And the case will then be assigned to a care manager at the CCO who will complete a life plan. The care managers will discuss OPWDD supports and services with families, help them decide which services may be a good fit, and then they're going to submit a request to us at OPWDD to please authorize those services being requested. The care, then from there, the facilitator, the one who you had the phone assessment with, will submit that to a separate unit at OPWDD to get those services authorized. So once waiver is secured, the front door closes figuratively. It's done, right? Starts with the initial contact to OPWDD, eligibility, connecting with a front door facilitator, enrolling with a CCO, and securing that first waiver services. So that is the front door. So as I mentioned earlier, getting, you need eligibility for any of the services through OPWDD. And one final note is, once an individual is authorized for waiver services, they can change, add, modify services. The care manager at the CCO submits a service amendment to a different unit at OPWDD. It's a fluid process and changes as the individual's needs change. So I'm sorry I went on so long on this, but this concludes my presentation, and I want to thank everybody. But I want to now introduce Lambert Liu, who, as I mentioned, is extremely knowledgeable and can answer any and all questions about OPWDD. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. I think we're basing it on Grace and Alyssa to shout out any questions that are popping up in the chat. But like Marie had said, my name is Lambert Liu. I'm the other local schools transition coordinator for Long Island. And so I'm here to follow up anything you have from Marie's presentation or questions about OPWDD you have in general.
Great. Thank you, Lambert. Thank you, Marie, for such a really wonderfully informative presentation. We do actually have some questions for you. I believe that the first question has been addressed, but maybe you guys can give a little bit more specific information. Parent was asking about certain levels of functioning to qualify for OPWDD. I think that their concern was really based more on the fact that they do have higher functioning children. So can you kind of just give a little bit more information about specifically what might be needed if our students are more higher functioning? What can they do to achieve eligibility?
So it's not usually a satisfying answer when we give it, but what we're looking at in terms of adaptive functioning and a person's ability to care for themselves day to day is really partly based on that adaptive testing. So the Vineland and the ABOS, the Adaptive Behavior Assessment System, are the common ones that we see. The formal regulation is that we're looking for an adaptive score that's 2 standard deviations below the mean and subscores that are consistent with what we would expect to see from a developmental disability. So that's very, very technical language. I don't expect any family out there to memorize that and know exactly what that means. But really, the difficult thing is that there's not a formal cutoff, right? So let's say somebody has an adaptive score that's very high, but very high, let me qualify, would be somewhere for us like in the 80s. And they're submitting reports that do show there is the presence of a qualifying developmental disability, and all of the reports and the narrative pieces are describing that the person has very specific day-to-day challenges caring for themselves. we might not necessarily say that that person is not eligible just based on a score. We're going to review the entire packet and all of the information we have all together. And if it looks to the eligibility unit like there probably is a developmental disability that's going to qualify a person for us present, they might ask for additional information. They might ask for another adaptive test in a different setting. So if the person had an adaptive test that was done by a teacher or a school staff person, we might ask for one filled out by a parent, so we get a sense of how are they not, well, when they're not in maybe that structured environment. So it's a little bit challenging to say for us exactly what the cutoffs are going to be, but we are really looking at all of the documents as a whole to understand what particular challenges the person has and how they might fit into the OPWDD eligibility criteria.
Thank you so much. That was very informative. We appreciate that. So another question that we have is, can individuals receive services from both Access VR and OPWDD simultaneously?
Yes, and. So if a person is accessing Access VR for like the previous presenter who was talking about the employment training program, if they're using Access VR for supported employment, they can also use OPWDD for any of the other supports and services that we're providing, right? So somebody can be in supported employment and in a day program, or in supported employment and getting community rehabilitation, accessing programs or self-hiring workers through the self-direction budget. I don't believe we can double up at the same time. So like the last presenter for ETP said, we do also have supported employment services under OPWDD. I think if a person's getting Access VR for supported employment, OPWDD supported employment, since it's ultimately all paid for by Medicaid, wouldn't be able to step in and also do the same exact service. But when Access VR fades out, or for any of the other supports that aren't related to employment that a person needs, OPWDD can definitely be used at the same time.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. So can individuals receive services from agencies prior to OPWDD eligibility? I know that in our earlier session, we did have some speakers from Tri-County, but we were just kind of wondering for a little bit more clarification on, can they receive services prior to a determination of eligibility, and what services may they be eligible for then?
Yep, thank you for bringing it back, because when I heard that it came up for Tri-County, unfortunately, all services through OPWDD need that a person be eligible first. So the one qualifier that I'll give to that is, like Tri-County was talking about, they're able to connect with families at any point in the process, but what they're connecting for is to help families with the application or to provide a little bit of guidance on the system. Tri-County at that point, or any of the CCOs at that point, would not be providing direct supports and services like respite programs or workers that are working on skills. A person does need to get eligibility before they're eligible for any of those services. Once a person has eligibility, Tri-County had briefly mentioned this, there are services and supports that don't require Medicaid, and so a person can get eligibility, talk with their front door facilitator, like Marie had mentioned, and start with some of the family support services that are not Medicaid funded right away, even while they're going for those Medicaid funded services. But nothing can start for us before eligibility. We do know, of course, that there are oftentimes extenuating circumstances. OPWDD is not great at handling urgent crises. Our system doesn't move very, very fast, right? We're not emergency services. We're definitely not something like a hospital or the police or EMS, those kinds of things. But if there are extenuating circumstances, after the health and safety of a person is taken care of first, it doesn't hurt to reach out to OPWDD either if a family has a facilitator already, or they're working with a care manager or a care coordination organization, to explain to us the extenuating circumstances. We are able to ask the eligibility unit really to put priority on some of those reviews when we know that somebody, maybe they submitted their packet last week, but they really need something right away to prevent maybe a health and safety kind of concern from coming up. Eligibility can work to move a little bit more quickly to get that review done so a person can be made eligible to start faster with services, but we do have to wait until they're eligible to serve them.
Thank you so much. That really did clarify, so we do appreciate that. Another question that we have is, how long does a waiver request remain in effect?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, so I'll answer it the way I'm thinking to give the person who typed it a chance to clarify if that's not what they were thinking of. So once a family is working with a care manager and they've talked to their front door facilitator, the care manager will help them gather together the HCBS, the Home and Community-Based Services Waiver application. The waiver unit, once we have that in our hands, will take about 90 days. Will take up to 90 days to process that packet. So if a waiver request comes into us, if a family and a care manager hasn't heard back at all, it's being processed. It should take no longer than 90 days. We've been getting the turnaround really quickly within the past few months. So I would say if they haven't heard within a couple of months, then probably something is up and it's useful for the care manager to just check in with us. That timeline might take longer, but in that case, the care manager or the family would definitely hear back from us. So we might reach out if we're missing a document, or we might reach out if something needs to be adjusted or completed in the packet of documents that we've received, but it wouldn't just be sitting there without being looked at or reviewed.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lambert. That is, I believe, the way that it was intended. So how long, okay, so we cover the length of the eligibility process. Marie had gone over that, but I did want to just clarify just to make sure that we heard that correct. So if families submit an application and there is paperwork that is still needed and there is a request back for, let's say, a report of some kind or clarification, that does reset the 90-day clock? Is that what we heard?
Yep, on paper and officially, when we get new documentation, even if it's because we submitted a request for additional information, that resets the 90-day clock. So as much as possible, we like to get packets that have everything we need right off the bat. Sometimes it won't be possible necessarily for a family to know that, right? So you might have all of the documentation that you have available, but you don't know exactly how OPWDD is looking at the criteria. So you won't know, let's say, the example I gave, that we're going to ask for another adaptive test just to see if we can sort of understand whether a person fits our criteria. In practice, those additional information requests through the eligibility unit are tied to a specific eligibility unit social worker. What that usually means is that when you send in documents, when either the schools are assisting the families or a care manager or non-Medicaid service coordinator is helping the families to send those additional documents in, you can give a call to the social worker who's named, who's going to be on that letter with their telephone number, and just check in to make sure that they've received it. And you can get a sense from them on how quickly they're doing their additional info reviews. Because most of the time, if it's just one additional report or one additional document, they're not going to have to, re-review the entire packet fresh. It's not as though that social worker completely forgets everything they read and has to start over. They'll have an understanding of the case and the specifics, and they'll know why they asked for the additional information that they asked for. So oftentimes, an additional information review won't take, again, that full 90 days, even though on paper it does reset the clock.
Thank you so much. That was a very clear, in-depth answer, and we appreciate that. So can individuals sign up for communication from OPWDD? I'm thinking that means like any of the push outs or anything directly from OPWDD that might be going to parent that parents might not be getting. Is there a way for them to get access to those communications?
I'm not 100% sure. I believe we used to have a mailing list, but relatively recently our website sort of changed very drastically. It was kind of at the beginning of the pandemic, a little more than a year ago. It wasn't because of the pandemic, it just happened to line up that way. So I don't know if we still have a mailing list option. You had mentioned, Grace, Parent to Parent is a great resource. They have a lot of staff who are really plugged into the system, so they'll oftentimes, when they hear about things, push things out to their mailing list right away. We love them, they're super great. But I will check to see if there is some option for families to sign up for something like a mailing list with information. In terms of big regulatory changes, New York State is always required to announce those publicly, allow for a public comment period, and all of those kinds of things. So usually when something like that happens, it'll just be on the front page of our website. One of those scrolling banners will have information that a new proposal or a new amendment and its public comment period is coming up. But I don't know 100% if folks can get emails about that. I think they should, and we'll get that info so you can email it out to the families who are attending.
Thank you so much. So another question that we have is for parents that are attending the front door sessions virtually, how do they receive proof of attendance? Because that is one of the required processes, and they're wondering how they actually get proof of attendance.
Yep. So we've moved to a statewide system for our virtual information sessions since all of the coronavirus lockdowns and everything. So the WebEx system that we use, when families register for an information session, that registration information that they're putting in, part of it is going to be the parent or advocate's contact info, right? Who's attending the session. And if that information is not the person who's actually looking for services, for a lot of folks on this call, they're going to be your child or your loved one. We also ask for that person's information. So attendance for attending an info session is tied to the person looking for services. So most folks, your child or family member. When you do that registration through WebEx, we get their information there. And then WebEx, when folks are attending, keeps track of the attendance information. It's much more granular than we even need. It'll tell us how many minutes somebody was actually logged into the WebEx system. We don't keep track of that necessarily, but we're just looking when folks who have registered for the session log into that session that they've registered for, it generates an automatic attendance report. Since it's statewide, we're working out some of the growing pains of figuring out, like, let's say Long Island is hosting a session, but we have several people from the city or several people from Buffalo attending. We have a system in place where all of the attendance gets centralized, but we're working out some of the bugs just to make sure that, like, Buffalo will get that attendance info for the person who attended, and vice versa. So if you attend a training hosted by one of the other regions, we're going to make sure to go into the attendance and pull that. It might take us a little bit. So if a parent does attend a virtual training and you know you've attended a training and we don't have the record when you're talking to somebody and they're saying, hey, you have to attend a training, let them know the date and we'll be able to go into the system and just double check that we've pulled all the info that we've gotten.
Thank you so much. And if those virtual front door sessions are full, excuse me, is there a wait list of some type or a way in which that they would be able to log in last minute if they're full? Would you be able to open up a few extra seats?
The benefit of the statewide system is I don't believe there is a maximum capacity right now. In theory, WebEx will max out at 1,000 participants. We might someday get close, but I think the most that we had was one session in April where we had 360 something people signed up, but we ultimately only had just under 300 actually log in to the session. So the big secret for right now is that those won't cap out. So all of those sessions that are posted on the information session part of the website, families should be able to continue to register for. The one piece is that those sessions are coming up a little bit more slowly than we would prefer because we're trying to deal with IT up in Albany and central office. So I think only the first couple in June and all of the rest in May are up. But there are going to be every single week coming up. So if a family either doesn't have the time for the May or June sessions, know that the other ones will be posted eventually. And if you just check every couple of weeks or once a month, the next set of sessions should get posted. So there will always be more opportunities for them, even if you sign up and you miss it. But you won't have to worry about a wait list because those right now aren't capping out.
Thank you so much, Lambert. And the last one is sort of a mix between some of the questions that we get all of the time from our families and some of the questions here this evening. So Marie had mentioned that there's various evaluations for autism, for the autism diagnostic evaluations. So I know that often we're asked for an ADOS, but I just wanted to understand. So a CARS, we're going to use the alphabet soup now, the CARS, the GARS, the ADIR, those are all acceptable forms for an autism diagnostic?
So really what they're looking for the autism diagnosis is going to be 3 specific parts. So one of those is going to be a scored standard scale with autism symptoms. So the ADOS has that piece. A narrative description of the way that the symptoms present for the person. So every once in a while, it happens much less now, but we used to get reports where a clinician might just describe what autism is and some autism symptoms in general, but not describe what specific symptoms this individual in front of them is displaying, how severe they are, how long they've been lasting, if there are any triggers for them. Really, we're looking for that information. So we need a standard scale score and a description of the person's symptoms, and then a description of the person's symptoms developmentally. So part of this might be in a social history or social developmental history, but oftentimes the autism specialty report will have a little bit more focus just on the autism piece. We prefer the ADOS, the Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule, ADOS, because that, as part of what the ADOS tool itself is, incorporates all of those pieces. So the clinicians that are trained to do the ADOS, they really, if they're following the rubric for that, they're including all three of those pieces in there. In some situations, we have had eligibility packets come in where that information is a little bit scattered. Like I said, some of those pieces might be in a developmental report, some of those pieces might be in the psychological report, some of those pieces might be in a CARS. If all of the pieces are there, the eligibility unit does, like I said, take account of the whole packet. So sometimes you might send in a CARS and all of the other information in the packet is great, gives us a clear picture of the autism symptoms for this person, and we might not ask for a specialty report. Sometimes you might send in a CARS and we see that maybe the scores in the CARS, CARS is the Childhood Autism Rating Scale. We might see the scores in the CARS probably indicate autism, but we don't have enough descriptive material in the rest of the reports. So we'll ask for a full autism specialty report that includes those pieces. So it is, we say the ADOS and the ADIR because those are sort of the gold standard and they really will include all those pieces that our eligibility unit needs. If those pieces can be gathered together piecemeal from other reports, that can work as well, but it's going to be a little bit less reliable. So we don't say that we accept the CARS just as an autism diagnosis because it's missing a couple of those other pieces that we need, even though it does have a standard score.
Lambert, Emery, thank you again for such an incredibly informative evening. We appreciate you being here in the evening. And before we let you go, I really have to say thank you again, because we realize that OPWDD, usually, it takes so long. But what most people don't realize is how incredibly hard you as transition specialists work to get this information out there to as many families as you can, as often as you can. And what also many families do not realize is the small amount of specialists that you have to go through these reports at a given time, and that it's not just covered by your school district. Your OPWDD covers an entire region. So most often, OPWDD will get that quote unquote bad rap for taking a long time, but people just don't realize how big the region is that you do cover. So we do appreciate all that you do.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. And it's great to hear that Marie and I are the two local schools transition coordinators for Nassau and Suffolk, and there's 200 something school districts across the island. So we do our best to make sure that as much information is out there as possible. Like I said, eligibility loves to get a packet that's fully complete, but they're also working their best, right? That, like Marie had mentioned, when they send an additional information request, they're sending that because we're trying to make folks eligible. We're trying to get them into the system. We're not just saying, oh, it doesn't have all the pieces, not eligible. We are really trying to make sure that as many people as fit our criteria are able to get into our system, get those supports that they do need. And so the eligibility team does the best that they can as quickly as they can. But like you said, they are working with all of Nassau and Suffolk counties coming in.
Lambert, thank you. I did just get two last quick questions. I think much of it has been covered. If a child is eligible for SSI independently after 18 years old, are parents' income child support assets used for eligibility for services?
So OPWDD eligibility doesn't look at any income requirements and things at all. That would be the Medicaid piece.
Okay.
For the Medicaid piece, I'm not sure. It might be best to check in with the benefits and entitlements units at the care coordination organizations. I know Tri-County presented on theirs. All three of them that serve Long Island should have, but since Tri-County got out in front of the families and you have their telephone numbers, you can send that question over to them and they should be able to answer about that piece. But OPWDD doesn't look at income for eligibility.
Okay, and I know most of this was covered, but I just want to clarify that so that the parent understands that they just received a determination letter saying that they are eligible. What are the next steps? Which is that they would be contacting one of the care agencies, and they don't need to contact OPWDD again once they have that eligibility letter. Again, their next step is to contact one of the three care coordinating agencies and start the process with them. Did I explain it correctly?
Yep, connecting with one of the 3 CCOs is good, and there's going to be a phone number at the bottom of that letter that the family can reach out to in case they need additional guidance with follow-up. That should be our main number, which is 631-434-6000. So again, 631-434-6000. So that family can call that number, get connected to a facilitator, and you're right that the very next step is also to connect with a care coordination organization to help with the application part for the home and community-based services waiver.
Thank you. Again, we appreciate your time. Again, covering Nassau Suffolk equates to a lot of evening events, and we do appreciate your time. Thank you. So again, 631-434-6000. Lambert and Marie, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.